loved it. I've been watching it.
I mean, I was not running. I just started like 4 years ago, and I've been using this run experience application that is really helpful, and I love it. I recommend it. The whole program, I loved it, but things that I didn't know, it was how to practice the drills and also the warm-ups and the after running, and also breathing, and also the other options that you have to avoid injuries.
Yeah.
That is great. And the nutrition program is amazing as well. I've been following all that.
Nutrition is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also how to perform the high heels.
How long have you been watching our YouTube channel?
For about the last year now.
Amazing.
So, quite a while. So
Oh, it was more.
you guys mean a lot.
And you guys don't waste time and watch the run experience. They rocked.
We're exit 68, not 69.
What?
Oh.
Gotcha. Well, welcome guys. We're still figuring this out. Apparently I have the wrong number for our episode.
It's not a big deal. It's just your partner's job to, pick at the small little defects.
All right, we're in business now. Welcome back to another week of TRE Live.
TRE Live.
We have number 68 today, and we have Mario Fraioli who's calling in. I'm actually really excited because I have been reading Mario's Morning Shakeout newsletter every week, and he has been talking about all things racing. If you have not subscribed to him, you definitely should. Hit the Gleam link down below. You can enter for a drawing for his book.
Yes,
autographed
he
copy.
has about a year or two ago, he wrote the official Rock and Roll's guide to half and full marathon training.
Awesome. And Mario's an amazing coach, so you will not be disappointed.
You will not be disappointed. I think the foreword is by Lauren Fleshman, who is an incredible runner, and they actually just did a podcast, so you could check out the Lauren Fleshman podcast with Mario. You could sign up for the giveaway. You could read her foreword. They have a fun story where Mario and her were at kind of similar speeds a couple years ago, so they challenged each other for a little race-off when they both raced one of the rock and roll races. So they kind of chat about it in the podcast, so you can get that little bit there. The other fun thing, it's Chicago next week.
Totally. Is it next week?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I know. This time next week, I'm going to be on a plane. So Coach Holly and I are going to be out in Chicago.
That's right.
Doing a few fun things, and we will be hanging out with Mario and Tracksmith on Saturday morning for a shakeout run. So if you guys are around and you want to come and run with us, we would love to hang.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that morning shakeout, just to finish it out, if you hit the Gleam link down below, there'll be a link to Mario's site where you can sign up for his Morning Shakeout newsletter. You will not be disappointed. He puts good stuff in there every week.
Really, really does.
Yeah.
And, I really go, Mario is sort of like my go-to informed running geek. Like, he's just been in it for so long, and he has such good perspective on where the sport's been going. He really follows kind of the trends with women's running, with track and field, and with the marathon, and it's just a really exciting time right now in marathon. It's really fun. Like women, like
breaking 2 thing last year, Shalane.
Yeah, there's so many things. Like there's like the Breaking 2 project that Nike did. If you guys didn't see that, just look up Breaking 2. You'll go to a Nike site. They have an incredible documentary of their attempt to break the 2-hour marathon.
I heard their attempt. It's actually Kipchoge's attempt.
Yeah. Well, they
had
shoot around it. They did this whole thing, and it was very concontroversial because it wasn't on an official course. They did loops around a track. They used pacers the whole time. They tested it kind of reminded me of like the Mighty Ducks, like ducks fly together.
Yeah.
They had this like Power V.
Yeah.
I wonder if they actually watched that.
You know what I was noticing is that his record breaking was almost the same distance in terms of seconds away that he is from what his time was with the Breaking 2 project.
It's very true.
Right? It's like a minute, like a little less than a minute and a half, which you can't really, it's funny, over a marathon for most of us, a minute here, a minute there is like, whatever. But when you're going his pace, every second and fraction of a second counts. It's just incredible.
It's so insane. Just even running at that level, like 26 seconds faster, 1 second per mile faster is massive, right? It's totally massive. So he goes just over 2 hours, which is incredible. Doesn't fully break it.
Yep.
Not an official record. So he goes into Berlin a little hungry, being like, I want the official world record, which was high 202. It was like just under 203. He smashes it. And this dude is just like, he's like a running Buddha. He's like this like sage. He looks a lot older than he is, maybe because of all the running, but he's like 33. And he's just this like wise soul. Like you just listen to him and you're like, I feel calmer.
Yeah. He talks about his mental, and actually Mario's probably going to talk about this as well, about his mental fitness being such a huge part of his training. Just like, this is one of those moments where I feel like even if you're not into running, you have to just be blown away at the amazing feat of humanness that just occurred.
It's really incredible. And, you know, I'm sure Mario will get into this with, you know, like newer things with, or not newer, but you know, like the rash of doping,
right?
Like what
I really want to talk about that.
What can we choose to believe in? What we can't,
right?
You know, so we'll just share that. But before we go too far down that way, I have a special Craig's Crazy Kitchen that he doesn't know about.
Oh, I don't know about?
I've got some special gifts for him. So
okay.
I got some good tomatoes. Because I feel like I just let go of one of like my last weird childhood like nutritional hangups.
Can I tell this story from my perspective? Okay, so was it yesterday? Day before yesterday?
2 days ago.
This past weekend I went to get these farmers market dry farmed early girl tomatoes late in the season. They're just like the epitome of like California produce, and since I'm living here, I feel like you should partake in this. Anyhow, I had these. They're very expensive, and I slice one in half, and I hand half to him, not even thinking about it, as I go back to my desk. And he looks at me, he hands it back to me. He's like, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
I am not comfortable.
I'm not comfortable eating a tomato. I was like, are you crazy? You were gonna eat that. That's like not as.
In my defense, am used to like smaller chopped up slices of tomato or cherry tomatoes, like in salads with other stuff. Like
it is technically a fruit.
It is true. The idea of eating half a tomato, to me, was just abominable. And I think I grew up with some bad tomato experiences.
Right.
Blame it on that. But anyway, I ate this thing. Delightful.
Yeah.
Incredible. My whole perspective on tomatoes has changed.
Yeah.
So much tomato flavor. It was great. But we're trying to repay the favor. So 2 years ago, my wife asked for her birthday for a fig tree. And we got said fig tree, planted it, and this thing is going off this year. So another California thing.
We've
got some lovely figs.
Oh, I love it.
We wanted to get Craig some beautiful green figs, and they're just starting to bruise. They're super soft.
I love it. Oh,
super
amazing!
Lush. Look at that. Delicious.
And this is from your tree, and
this is from our tree.
Cheers.
That Nora has fertilized. I'm kidding. It's in a basket. She can't do that.
Nora and I are close. It wouldn't matter.
I know. That's good, right?
Wow.
Not too bad, right? So
that's
summer, right here, fig. I'll leave that one
both
for
of
you.
Them? Oh, sweet.
You get both of them.
Nice.
And we have another little gift. Now, I can't take credit for this. This is 100% my wife.
Oh, wow.
We have been just getting into fun projects at home, brewing and fermenting things. And Aaron, maybe 2 weeks ago, was like, I really want to try making kombucha.
Oh, wow.
So,
nice.
2 weeks later,
no kidding.
We have, I believe this is strawberry mint.
You know, you don't have to guess because Erin has labeled them.
She's got the thing. And she has a card in here for you.
Sweet.
So you have your own kombucha set up there.
I'm going to finish my water and try this right now.
Finish your water and get it. And if you guys don't know kombucha, it's this weird hippie drink.
It's like
but it's delicious and delightful.
It's like fruit juice meets a beer.
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know. It's like fermented but not alcoholic.
Good.
So yeah.
Jessica says, I got to witness the tomato trauma. Jessica was on when you were doing that.
That's right. We were Skyping with Jessica, and I was like, you're going to eat that tomato right now on camera.
I know, right?
Cannot stand. Did you eat the rest of them? I sent you home with some.
We are parceling them out. They're delicious.
As you should.
You should, because they are Well, as you're drinking your kombucha, let's go say hi to the good people, the good runners of the internet.
Fantastic.
Force of Dean, what is up? David, how are you? Gary, Mark, Pogba, Edward, Yelemi, Shayna,
nice.
Delilico, Trevor, Carrie, what is going on? Excited to hear from Mario, Nagria, Hussein, Theodora. I love the different names here. Felalani from South Africa.
Felalani, I'm coming to Cape Town. Woo! Fun fact, in about a month and a half.
Oh. Elizabeth in Greece. Dean Karnassus is in Greece. We just talked to him last week.
Is he in Greece right now?
He, I think, is in Greece. Jimmy, Edward, Shayna, all of you guys are in. If you guys are new and you've never signed in or chimed in before,
really good.
Don't be afraid to say hello in the comments section.
All right.
Whoa! That's how you know it is carbonated. Smell. Get that extra whiff.
Wow, I was not expecting that. That was amazing.
I know. What's up, Luigi? How are you? Yeah, get a little sample of this. It's really delicious. Oh, Jessica says, I make kombucha all the time. Of course you do, Jessica.
Jessica.
Amazing.
Take the girl out of California, but...
I know, exactly right.
All right.
Here we go.
Well, guys, it's almost time to call Mario.
I know, it's almost time to call Mario. What do you think here?
Oh, yeah. Man.
Not bad, right?
That's tasty.
So there's like the normal fermentation process, and then you add fruit juice into a bottle, and it goes through a second one, and that's where it gets the carbonation, because it's like the extra sugar from like the fruit. So we did this like little fruit puree of some fresh strawberries
and mint. Definitely mint.
So it's so tasty. Anyway, if I could share with you guys a little kombucha, I would.
This is Nate's Crazy Kitchen. Nate and Aaron's Crazy Kitchen.
Aaron says feedback welcomed and appreciated.
Awesome. No, this is great. I mean, I was actually not expecting it to be this fruity, because usually when you get home stuff, it's bland.
I love mix.
Is it the double fermentation process?
The double fermentation process. Oh, Shayna says, hey, I'll be volunteering at the main medical tent here for the Chicago Marathon, so hopefully I can catch you guys when you are in town.
Fantastic.
We would love that.
I will not be there. I wish I could be there, but my mom is turning 70, and I must be with her. So you'll see Coach Holly and Coach Nate there.
Yes, we'll be good. We'll be totally good.
But I will be in New York, so if you guys come to the New York Marathon...
I know. I'm really looking forward to that. New York in the fall is the best. The city's awesome.
Yeah.
So much fun to be out on the East Coast.
Yeah, and we are coming there specifically to meet you guys, so we don't really have another agenda other than to talk to our athletes. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What do you want to do?
Try putting ginger in the second ferment. Interesting. I like how Aaron and Jessica are having like this totally chat amongst themselves on kombucha. All right, guys. Well, the topic of this is really around marathoning and learning something from Kipchoge's amazing feat recently. So let's get Mario on, because he's really the expert, and I can't wait to ask him all kinds of questions. I do want to dig into the doping, not allegations, but the rumors and stuff like that. Who will always be around when somebody does something fantastic.
And to be fair, I don't think anyone is fingering Kipchoge right now. I think he's reputed to be a clean athlete, but just athletes out of Kenya and Eastern Africa, just everything, right? So just more the general call.
All right, let's do it. Hold on.
Let's
give this guy a call.
Giving him a call. Get him on the line. Here we go.
All right.
Are we in business?
We are in business. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Great to be
Mario, yeah, it's great to have you on. And I don't know if you caught any of our intro talking about kombucha and
I know
figs.
Well, I do know, because I was in the gym with Nate this morning, that he is now a kombucha brewer.
That's right.
Well, not me. As you know, this is all my wife, Mario, as things are. I'm just the passive.
What are the fermented foods that you have? So you've done bread.
We've done bread.
You've done kombucha. Have you done beer? I'm surprised you haven't done beer.
I haven't done beer yet. I'm kind of interested to do beer.
Yeah. And then pickles.
Yeah, I know. And you've done pickles.
I've done pickles. I've done what's the yogurt one called?
Yep, you've done yogurt.
I've done yogurt, and I've also done what's the thing where you add milk? I don't know. I remember what it's called. The grains.
Fermented grains.
No, you can get this stuff. It's not quite yogurt, but it's like a drink.
Lassi? No. Yogurt drinks? I don't know.
Just because I'm
just throwing out terms.
Kefir, is that what it's called?
Yeah, kefir, that's right. He's got it.
Yeah.
Mario's got it, yeah.
Someone's paying attention.
Yeah, there you go. So I've done kefir. I haven't really done bread. I've done one loaf of bread. And then, I haven't done kombucha. I've done pickles. You know, slowly working our way into the fermented California hippie stereotype.
I know. Mario, we're super stoked to have you on.
Understand. I'm now, but I can search.
We got a little Siri jumping in here.
Siri thinks I'm talking to her.
I know, right? Well, we're super excited to have you on. I want to talk about all the things, things that you've been digging into lately on the Morning Shakeout, exciting people that you've liked from an interview standpoint. But I thought it'd be really fun to start with Kipchoge.
Yep.
So, why don't you give us a little background just on like who this runner is and
the run up to his attempt at Berlin.
Yeah, obviously I think he's had 12 marathon starts and 11 wins or something like that. Obviously he's
11 and 10,
something like that. Much more famous now than he was even just a year ago.
I liked what you said in your newsletter about comparing him to Haile Gebrselassie, because for me it's also when I was running he was the epitome of running, and it's interesting to think about it now and be wow, actually when you compare their records, I think it was you were saying that his dominance of the sport is kind of unquestioned at this point. It's hard for me to update myself completely.
I know.
And take Haile off of that.
Your records.
Yeah.
Do we have a question for him?
Yeah. So what's the question? No.
It's Mario's classic interview. It's what are you clowns doing? What do you like about Eliud? Let's start with that.
There's a lot to like about him. I mean, from an athletic standpoint, I do think he is arguably the greatest marathoner of all time, if not the greatest distance runner of all time, which is up for debate depending on who you talk to. But, I mean, bottom line is he's put up some of the most amazing performances in running history, certainly in the marathon. And if you look at what he's done at shorter distances on the track and on the roads and in cross country, there are very few who have reached his level of success. And I think that's a pretty amazing thing. But I also love how personable he is, and that beyond the nerdy little running world that I live in, more and more people have been getting to see who he is and hear his story. And I think the Breaking 2 project a year ago, where he ran 2 hours and 25 seconds in that Nike event in Monza, exposed him to a lot more people. I mean, there were millions of people who tuned into that live stream, and most of them have probably never watched a running race in their entire life.
Yeah,
but
let alone a marathon.
Yeah, let alone a marathon. But the spectacle of, can this guy break 2 hours for this distance, which has never been done before, was a really compelling narrative. And I think Nike did a good job of telling his story of growing up in Kenya, getting into the sport, having worked with the same coach for 15, 16 years, taking a peek into his training camp where look, this guy is a multimillionaire many times over because of his success on the roads and on the track, and he still 2 to 3 times a year goes away to training camp. He's away from his family. He's training hard. He's cleaning toilets in addition to running 120 miles a week. I mean, he's reading books in his spare time. I love watching the guy speak. He reminds me of Master Splinter in a lot of ways. If you go and watch Master Splinter from one of the Ninja Turtle movies, and then go watch Eliud Kipchoge just speaking in front of the Oxford Union, and you'll know what I'm talking about.
That's funny. Wow. Okay. That is so great.
I think beyond his performances, which are eye-catching in their own right, he's just a super personable guy. He has a really interesting story. He has been very open about telling it and connecting with his fans, and we don't see that a lot in running, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
It's a rare combination.
So just, I think too, I was wondering if you could expand on this a little bit, what does he mean to Kenya? And I think from the United States, especially the United States sports perspective, runners are cute, they're down here, but they're not the NFL quarterbacks or the Major League Baseball players or the LeBron James of the world. What does he mean to Kenya and the rest of the world, and just in terms of how big he is?
Well, in Kenya, he's like the LeBron James or the Michael Jordan of that country. I mean, distance running is Kenya's, I don't want to say it's its national sport. I mean, they probably be soccer, if I had to guess, but it's up there. I mean, Kenya's biggest export is distance runners. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
If you
It's
think of
amazing.
it that way, I mean, they have dominated, along with Ethiopia, those two East African countries have dominated, the marathon in particular, but just distance running from the 1,500 meters on up for a couple decades now, and with just remarkable dominance. And when he goes home to Kenya, I mean, there's people waiting for him at the airport, ready to celebrate his accomplishment. And in contrast, I can't say this with certainty, but I'd be willing to bet that when Shalane Flanagan got off the plane in Portland, Oregon after winning New York last fall, there weren't thousands of people waiting for her to welcome her home. Whereas if a big sports team here, wins,
comes back.
Comes back,
that's fair.
There's people waiting at the airport. And it's just like that in Kenya.
Yeah.
I mean, he brings a lot of pride to their country. It is, he is indisputably the fastest marathoner of all time now. And it's not just him. I mean, Kenya has a history of distance running. When someone from Kenya wins the Boston Marathon or wins an Olympic medal, which Kipchoge has, they get back to Kenya and they are celebrated. They're national heroes. There's a parade.
So
people know who they are through the street. It's a pretty cool thing.
It's an interesting topic in of itself, right? The kind of the export of runners out of Kenya. And I've read about and heard different theories on why that is. What is the prevailing theory that you have heard or kind of like believe in as far as why Kenyans have been so dominant?
It's a really blended theory. I mean, it's everything from, sort of like the hoop dreams type story. This is their way out. Like, this is their way out of the hood.
Yeah.
And
I like that reference.
How
That's
they
good.
can, if they can get out of Kenya and go race somewhere and place and win some prize money, because of, how poor of a country it is, like a little money goes a long way. Kenya goes back to their village with $1,000. That takes care of them for a few years. Someone like Kipchoge goes back who's won millions of dollars and he can pump it back in, in whatever way he chooses. He can build schools. He can, run farms. He can do all kinds of stuff that just brings a lot of good back to his country, and that's motivating for a lot of Kenyans who just want an opportunity to race outside of Kenya. So they're very hungry, because if they win or they place well or they put up a big performance that puts money in their pocket that they can bring home, it is life-changing for their family and for their village. So I think there's that element of it. You look back at a lot of these athletes' upbringings. They grow up in small, remote villages. They have to run to school. They start doing that from the time that they're a young kid. So their overall development as runners and of their aerobic system and of the strengthening of their musculoskeletal system starts a lot earlier than it does in a lot of westernized countries. So you can make an argument for that. The history there, I mean, now that Kenyans have been dominating track, cross-country, road races for a couple decades now, young kids want to aspire to that. They see Kipchoge, they see Paul Tergat, they see the Martin Lells of the world, the Sammy Wanjirus who have made it big, and they're like, well, why not me? They came from the same group that I did. They had a similar upbringing from what I had. They went to the same secondary school. If I get the same opportunity, I can do that too. And I think that's a really motivating thing.
Yeah, that's really
amazing.
Cool. I wanted to pull on just one thread about group training and how this is something that's really been, I guess my understanding of it was something that's really rose to prominence from, areas like Kenya where they would train in these big groups.
Yeah.
And, Eliud would this superstar, like, in this country, he would be the Michael Jordan driving his Ferrari to his penthouse, but he doesn't behave that way, and he will get into these groups that are very democratic, to say. And I was just,
if you can keep up with a 438 mile for 26 miles, you're allowed in the group,
if you can
and you get to run with them for as long as you can.
I know, but I just wanted to contrast that. I was just listening to your podcast with Lauren Fleshman just yesterday, and she mentioned how when she was coming up in the professional running, let's say the last 10-15 years, there wasn't really that group training mentality in the US, but things are starting to change there. So I was hoping you could expand a little bit on what are some of the magical things that's happening in Kenya from the group training perspective, and how are other runners starting to replicate that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually a really important point. And it's not just in Kenya, but I do think, and not that it started in Kenya, but I mean, look, in Kenya, people do not go and run for their health like they do here in the U.S. If you're running in Kenya, you are running to try and make it on a national team, to try and get invited to an international race. I mean, you're not running around because you're trying to keep.
It's not recreational running.
No,
it is actually a really interesting difference.
So if you go to Kenya, it's very rare that you see a lone wolf out training by himself, even at the top level. Most of the top athletes are part of a much bigger group. I mean, just Google it online, Kenyan training groups or Kenyan fartlek run or something like that, and you'll see these photos. And they're usually groups of like 24 or more athletes who are training together on a regular basis. They meet at 6 in the morning, and one day they'll head to the track, one day they head out for a hilly long run, one day they may head out for a fartlek, and group training is the norm. And we're seeing more and more of that in the U.S., and it's not really a new thing. If you go back to the 70s when the U.S. was dominating distance running, and this was before Kenyans really started showing up on the scene, Bill Rogers was a part of the Greater Boston Track Club, which was a huge group of similar guys with similar ability, women too, who were training hard on a regular basis, and they would show up to races and they would dominate. And for whatever reason, the U.S. got away from that for a long time. There were less and less groups. For a while, there were very few that were existed. Now we're seeing more of that. Like the Hanson's Brooks Distance Project started that. I mean, it was well over a decade ago now. Mammoth Track Club, which has evolved quite a bit, but back in the early 2000s, I mean, Lauren was actually, we didn't talk a lot about it in our podcast, but she was a part of that group for a year. But that was like Dina and Meb and Ryan Hall and Ryan Shea and a lot of the top runners in the country. And there's Zap Fitness, and now there's Nike Oregon Project and Nike Bowerman Track Club and Hoka Naz Elite. So we're starting to see more of that, and a lot of it is modeled off of this kind of Kenyan and Ethiopian model, where you see these huge groups of like-minded athletes who are training hard together on a regular basis. And speaking from my own experience as a coach and as an athlete, you're always going to push harder when other people are around you. They keep you honest. There's always going to be someone in that group that's feeling good. That can be detrimental too, because it's easy to overtrain and you can go over the edge. But if you're doing that consistently for a long time, you're going to see improvement. So for someone like Kipchoge, he's worked with the same coach, Patrick Sang, for I think 16 years now. People have gone in and out of their group, but I mean, he's been a part of that training camp for the last, half his life or more than half his life. I mean, depending on how old you want to believe that Kipchoge actually is, and that's a whole other topic for a different day. They say he's 32. I don't think that's completely true. But anyway, he's been part of this.
How old do you think he is?
Guy's got to be at least close to 40. I mean, I'm 36, and he looks way older than me, at least if you look at his face. And
that is true.
And we know there aren't, not to knock on them, this is just truth. Like there just aren't very accurate birth records in Kenya and Ethiopia. So it's hard to say. I mean,
to be off by 8 years is a lot. That's a small child.
He could be somewhere between 32 and 42, and the same argument was made for Haile Gebrselassie. But
is he a Highlander, Mario?
That's
is he like
true,
150 or something?
Haile Gebrselassie, Geb was also looked old, didn't he? That's true.
Yeah. But back to the groups, I mean, look at Kipchoge's group. I mean, you've got Kipchoge, his record speaks for itself. Jeffrey Kamawar, who is part of his group, is, I think, at least 3-time World Half Marathon champion, won the New York City Marathon last fall, is one of the best cross-country runners in the world. I mean, he's training with other top-level athletes, and they are pushing each other to be their best. And we're seeing it show in the results.
That's really cool. So I wanted to, turn this a little bit to some concepts that we could all kind of take from and relate to this, because these guys are incredible. They live in Kenya. A lot of people in the US can be like, well, that's great, but that's not me.
Right.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, training tech, and I just wanted to get your own personal perspective on this, what you see elite athletes doing, and also what you see some of the Kenyans doing. Craig and I get sent tech stuff all the time. I have my Fitbit Ionic Watch I'm testing. I have an Aura sleep tracking ring.
I'm a fan of the Aura ring so far.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Oh, you got it on your pointer finger.
I change it. I just can't stand rings, but other than that.
But there's all this tech out there, and we're in San Francisco, so tech is a hub, and the whole premise is that knowing your data is going to make you better.
Yeah.
Where do you see the line there with runners in terms of new data coming in that's actually helpful and really just taking the data away?
Yeah. I think there's too much tech out there in general, and certainly in running as well, but just in our lives in general. And I think it's easy to become over-reliant on that. And I think there is, especially here in the Bay Area, this whole idea of the quantified self. Let's track everything, because if it's trackable, if it's measurable, you can improve upon it. And yeah, that's true to a degree. And I do think, technology is a collection of tools, and we just need to decide which of those tools we need to use to guide our training. And I think I know it can be really easy to become overly reliant on too many tools. If you look at Kipchoge's wrists during the Berlin Marathon, he did not have a watch on his wrist, not a GPS watch, not even a Timex watch. He had no watch on his wrist. Granted, he had a big clock in front of him that let him know exactly on the pace car how fast he was going, and he had very specific goal in mind. But he was not looking at his wrist every 3 seconds to see if he was still on pace. Whereas I see it at my track workouts here all the time. People hit go on their watch, they take a stride, they're like, "Am I on pace?" It's like, learn how to feel it out. And and I think, I think there's a time and a place to wear watches. But one thing I like to do with a lot of my athletes is take the watch off of their wrist, because it's important to develop a feel for the effort that you're putting out. And I tell my athletes all the time, like, if I tell you to run easy is not necessarily a number. It's a feeling. Like, you should be able to internalize that. Like, does this actually feel easy? I don't need the watch to tell me that it feels easy, because some days, you may go out and 8-minute pace feels really easy, and you may go out the next day and 8-minute pace feels really hard. So it's like, you've got to be able to internalize that and, and adjust accordingly. So, I look at what we have out now. We've got GPS watches. We've got, your Aura rings or whatever.
Aura rings. I know.
That does. You got heart rate monitors. I've seen power meters coming out for running now. You've got little things you can clip on your back that'll give you your cadence, your vertical oscillation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Craig's got it over here, the stride.
There's a billion things that you can track, but I think what we need to learn how to do...
the power meter. You got the little hip thing. There you go. Luma Run and the stride.
Yeah. And I think some of those things, there is utility and value in them, but it can become easy to get overwhelmed, especially for new runners. It's like, let's focus on a few key metrics, and that may be different for everyone. For some people, they might be fine with just time. Like, all right, I just want to know how long I'm out running. And oftentimes for me, that's that's what I do. Some people might need time and pace and maybe cadence or something like that. But I think it's just like finding those few key metrics that are important to you for where you are in your running journey, and learning what those things mean and how you can use them to kind of monitor your progress, to make improvements, and all of that stuff.
Totally. I think this came up in your interview with Shalane Flanagan. And guys, if you're just chiming in, we're talking to Mario Fraioli of the Morning Shakeout. He is talking about all things marathon with us. He has a fantastic newsletter and a podcast which you should subscribe to. There's a link in the description where you can go check out those pages, sign up for them, and in the process of doing so, that will enter into a giveaway of an autographed copy. Mario's agreed to give away 2 autographed copies of his official rock and roll half marathon training guide. So just want to throw that out there, get in there. But back to the question with Shalane, I remember you guys were talking about this, and I think it was her, correct me if it was with another one of your guests, but she mentioned it was like Jerry Miles.
Yes.
And you can kind of give a reference of who Jerry is, but the idea that she would run purposely without a watch. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's have you just expand, what are Jerry Miles?
Okay, so you are correct. That was from Shalane Flanagan's interview. Her coach is Jerry Schumacher. That is his name. Okay. And he before he started coaching Shalane and the Bowerman Track Club, he coached at the University of Wisconsin. And he coached the men's cross-country team. I think he helped out the women as well. But they had what he called Badger Miles, Wisconsin Badgers. And what a Badger Mile was is they based all of their training on 7 minutes a mile. So whether they ran 5 minutes a mile or they might have run 7:30 a mile, the way they calculated their weekly mileage was off of 7 minutes a mile, which I couldn't tell you how he came up with that, but that was Jerry's kind of standard for his men's team. So he would assign them run, and he still does this with his athletes now. He'll assign them minutes for a run. He'll be like, I want you to run 70 minutes. And for the men, that's 10 miles. Now, they may run, he may say 70 minutes easy, and they may run 11 miles. In that, but they log it as, because he goes by minutes, they log it as
10 miles. Right.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to explain. So for the women, Shalane says, because now they're not at the University of Wisconsin and Shalane's a Tar Heel, so she refuses to call them Badger Miles. They call them Jerry Miles. And for the women, Jerry Miles are 8 minutes a mile. Now Shalane Flanagan admitted to me, it's rare that she ever runs 8 minutes a mile. She's usually 7 minute pace or faster even on her easiest runs. But if Jerry says you've got an 88 minute run, she logs it as 11 miles. Or if you've got an 80 minute run, you'll log it as 10 miles. And it's just it's kind of a quirky thing. I couldn't really give you the method behind the madness, but I do know there are.
It sounds like she's like, it's a way, I remember she was kind of mentioning this in the interview of just, you're not stressing too much about your pace and just allowing your body to dictate. So there's that natural ebb and flow. Like if you have this run and, maybe you're in a headwind, maybe it's a little hillier course, you're not forcing yourself to that barrier that you're supposed to run and actually letting yourself run a little slower. And conversely, there are days you feel good, you're letting yourself go a little higher, but really focusing on the feeling and not stressing as much about the watch.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that Shalane really harped on in our conversation. I can't remember. That might have been, it was an early episode for those of you who want to check it out, of the Morning Shakeout podcast. It was before this year's Boston Marathon. I want to say it was maybe January or February. It was like one of the first 10 episodes I recorded. But what Shalane said was that, it just allows her to really pay attention to how she's feeling. And if she has a big workout and the next day she is just feeling smashed, she's like, I'll be crawling along at, granny pace for her, which is, maybe closer to 8 minutes a mile. But she just doesn't tie herself to a very specific number when the goal is to run easy and recover.
Yeah, gotcha. That's so great. Yeah. So maybe we can turn to Chicago and New York a little bit. Like, we got these events. First of all, guys, Mario and I are both going to be in Chicago, and you can come and hang out and meet both of us. We're actually kind of crashing Mario's party. I just talked to him about it yesterday with Tracksmith. But Mario, do you want to talk a little bit about the event you have going on Saturday morning?
Yeah, so Saturday morning, October 6th, 9:30 a.m. at the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel, which I think is on Michigan Avenue, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel, 9:30, Saturday morning, October 6th. I will be hosting a shakeout run. It'll be 3 to 4 miles, really easy along the lakefront path. Everyone is welcome, all ages, abilities, speeds, you name it. We'll do a short run. From Tracksmith's pop-up shop, which is going to be at that Chicago Athletic Association Hotel. Nice. Great place to gather. I'll probably be getting there about 9 o'clock myself. There will be coffee on hand from Linden and True Coffee. That is Des Linden, her husband, nice. Ben True, and his wife. They started a coffee company together right at Boston Marathon weekend. That's where we did this shakeout for the first time. I know Ryan Linden's going to be there pouring coffee before and after. I'm going to stick around for questions. I may host a podcast afterwards, so would love for you guys to stop by and join us. And
see what happens.
Yeah, and Nate will be crashing the party. He's a welcome addition.
If we're going to be there, then we'll make an event on our page so you guys can find all the information and send out an email.
And connect with us and everything. All that's coming out.
It's a ton of fun.
Totally, I think it'd be really fun. We kind of figured that. It's like rather than each have our own little parties, like why don't we bring them together and do that whole thing? Because I know there's some of you guys who would like to go to both. Mario, I get a few questions for you from our community.
Yeah.
Do you have anything before I jump to those?
Well, I want to dig more into...
You've been so patient today.
I know.
So good.
I'm very unlike me, Mario.
Have you had coffee this morning, or have you just been sipping on kombucha the whole
This
time?
guy does not drink coffee. He doesn't like warm beverages.
I don't like warm beverages, and caffeine makes me feel like...
We don't need him on coffee.
Not
Craig
good.
is he's his own natural upper.
It's a real... I wanted to dig in more into the like what you know about his, like why Berlin was chosen as his attempt for the record.
That's a great question.
And about the course, and then also like you talked a little bit about like why you've chosen to like believe in him as a clean athlete, and that there'll always be allegations about doping, and kind of tie that into like you've talked about doping a lot over the last few years. Yeah, and I actually really love that like when you take on that topic. Also, you talked a lot about if you guys have been following Mario, he's talked a lot about like food and eating habits of runners, healthy and unhealthy, and digging into some of the personal stories of people he's interviewed as well as personal takes on it. So like I would love to like dig into specifically into the doping stuff, because whenever we talk about an athlete who does something so phenomenal, like it's really sad that we've become disillusioned where it's hard to believe. But at the same time, there's a very real like second look. You're like, well, this does seem really incredible, and we've had so many disappointments of later learning, and we can list out the athletes, that are on in your head. So yeah, I want to talk about both those, Berlin and the doping.
Yeah, so let's start with Berlin. Just historically, it's the fastest marathon course in the world. I believe the last 6 or 7 men's world records have been set there.
Okay.
Kipchoge, last year he ran 2:03 and change there. I think his only non-marathon win was behind Wilson Kipsang when Kipsang set the world record in Berlin way back when. I think it was Kipchoge's second marathon. Gebre Selassie broke 2:04 there for the first time. It's just known as the fastest marathon in the world. It's flat. There aren't a lot of tight turns.
Good weather that time of year.
The weather is generally cooperative that time of year. So it's just, as far as major marathons go in the world, it's just known as one of the fastest. Whereas like a New York is a very hilly course. The weather is questionable. Same thing with Boston. Chicago is pretty fast. It's one of the fastest here, in the U.S. But weather, can be a little bit of a concern. Chicago. It's funny, they did away with pacers for a long time, but they're bringing them back this year. So it'll be interesting to see if things start getting faster again at Chicago. The last couple of years haven't been quite as fast without the pacers as they were years prior. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the short answer is Berlin is just known to be the fastest.
I didn't realize it was the site of that many records. That makes a lot of sense then.
Don't quote me on that, but I do think it's like 6 men's world records and a handful of the women's world records as well have been set in Berlin.
And for you guys watching, this is an example of like why Mario is great to have on our show, and then why you want to like the wealth of knowledge that he can pull from historically is just awesome. So I always appreciate that about you. The other thing about like specifically, and we can lead this into the doping question, which is technology. Like Holly doing it like breaking 2:04 on the same course. Like is it technology that's improving? Like when you look at
specifically about the new Nike shoes.
Well, the Nike shoes are an element of it, but like if you look at swimming records, the swimsuits that people use are different, and the pools are different. If you look at track track records, like the surface area, surface, and the way that people like. I mean, there's a lot of technology that is, sometimes there's a lot of marketing around it, like with Nike. Sometimes there's not, and so how much do we think that is playing in at this point?
It's hard to put a number on it, but it's certainly playing in. I mean, at that level.
Mm-hmm.
When you're running that fast, these guys are trying to improve, 1, 2, 3%. And, that first like 95 to 98% is training and staying healthy and, all the, kind of all the big things you need to do to just get to that level and to be in the ballpark in the first place. And now, we're seeing it with shoes. They're commercially, and a lot of these companies hire scientists. They are scrutinizing every little detail literally from the ground up. So from the shoes, from the surface, from the tightness of the turns, from the fuel that they're putting into their body, from the formation of the pacers.
Wow.
To not that scientists can control the weather, but looking back at the Breaking 2 project, and like one of the key ingredients to running fast over 2 hours is the weather has to cooperate as well.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. So, and even Kipchoge at Berlin this year, a lot of people don't know, and I'm not sure it's definitely like legal, but he was able to request when he wanted his fluids. So, typically they have elite tables at most major marathons. I think it's every 5K. And toward the end of the race, Kipchoge was getting bottles like every 3K. Because something, in his training with scientists maybe that they were working with were like, you should be taking in more carbohydrate more frequently, so that you don't run out of so things like that. So that's definitely technological advancements. I mean, there's been a lot of hullabaloo around the 4% shoes and exactly how much of an advantage those give people, and there is a variance from less than 1% to maybe as much as 6%. They market it as 4% type thing, and right. At that level, when they're like, we're trying to literally shave seconds, or in this case, Kipchoge shaved 78 seconds off of the world record. They're like, where can we get those seconds? Like, if we think we've figured out the training aspect of it, which, most people would agree, there probably aren't many optimizations at that level that they can make to the actual programming of his workouts. Right. But what else can we tweak and optimize so that he can maximize that fitness to a higher degree? So it is. I mean, and again, that's just the world we live in now. It's like, all right, well, what else can we tweak and optimize? And we're certainly getting in marathoning.
Totally, that's incredible. It sounds like Eliud with his team is using a lot of like tech on the back end of his training, but when he's racing, he's like not letting data overwhelm him. It's like pretty clean in that respect.
And just to bleed that into the doping question, maybe you can kind of summarize your position on it, and then talk about it in general.
Yeah. So my position specific to Eliud is I do believe he is a clean athlete, and my reasons for that are looking back at his entire career from the time that he was a teenager, or at least when he started coming on the international scene. His performances have been, I mean, he's improved, but they've been consistent, and he's improved at a very like gradual and arguably predictable rate over the course of the last 16 years. And also, if you look back at this, and I was having this conversation with my wife this morning on my run, I think the two things that separate him from, I mean, any other athlete in history, one is in the last 16 years, he, to my knowledge, and from everything I've read and heard and seen, he has not been injured, which is crazy. I know a lot of elite athletes.
Him and Dean Karnassus.
And average runners also, especially training for a marathon, like they get hurt and they miss a chunk of time. And he has not missed a chunk of time other than voluntary or planned time off in like 16 years. So if you're training at that level, and he's had the same coach that entire time, and you're on the program, and it's built for longevity and to bring you along consistently, and keep you healthy. I mean, that is a hard thing to replicate. There aren't many athletes who can say that, and I think that is a huge factor in his success. As I said, he's had the same coach for that period of time, and if you look at a lot of great runners throughout history, look at Meb Keflezighi. I mean, he's had the same coach, Bob Larson, for a long time, and there is something about
just that relationship over a long period.
Yeah, exactly. There's trust there. It's thought out, like their training and their progression, and maybe they try new things every once in a while, but it's not going from like one extreme to the other. Like there's a very it's a very methodical bringing along of his training over the course of many years, and then looking at what he's done before he even moved up to the marathon. I mean, he was world-class track athlete. He's an Olympic medalist, world championship medalist, great cross-country runner and racer.
Yep.
He's beat some of the other arguably best distance runners in history. He's beat, Kenenisa Bekele. Not many people can say that. And then since he's moved up to the marathon, which is his event, despite all his other success, which would have been enough to say he's had a great career. I mean, he is think of this like a boxer, right? He is 10-1 with 10 of those wins by knockout. And the one that he lost was like by decision, basically. That is just unmatched at that level. And if you look at the average of his times, like, Kipchoge, with the exception of the Olympics, he's raced fast marathons, like paced marathons where we're pacing the clock, and he has run, I think his average is something like 2:03 over the course of 11 marathons.
Oh my goodness.
Like something crazy. And I think
that's incredible.
The Olympics he ran, it was in Rio, it was hot, time doesn't matter, it's all about where you place. I think he was 2:08 there, but he won. It didn't matter. He was still able to, able to just win that race. And if you watch him step to the start line, like, he is obviously very confident in his preparation, and that's years of preparation. It's not like
a season.
Us as normal people, I see this with my athletes all the time, and sometimes it slips into my head. It's like, oh man, I've the last 10 to 12 weeks have been like kind of rough. He's like, I've been 16 years I've been putting in this work. But
that is incredible.
On this start line has done that? And the answer is no one. So it's like he has that confidence. And you watch him, you watch him in a race. The other thing, I've never seen the guy get rattled in a marathon. And Berlin was a good example of that. It's like, it was obviously, it was a world record attempt. All eyes are on him. There's all this external pressure, and that gun goes off, and he had his 3 pacers, and one guy's supposed to go 15K, and the other guy's supposed to go 25K, and the other guy's supposed to go like 30 to 35K, and the guy who was supposed to go the longest fell off first, and the guy who was supposed to go second fell off earlier than he was supposed to, and he had 1 pacer left, and that guy was supposed to be the first one to step off, and he ended up only going a little past halfway, and Kipchoge ran the last basically 10 miles of the race on his own, which is...
So his plan was shot to hell from a very early on situation.
Yeah, and in those races, and as the 2 project showed, the pacing, having those pacers, it was huge. And he didn't rattle
such a mental loss, right? All of a sudden, you're alone in the wind.
And he let it rattle him, and he kept his foot on the gas and negative split the race.
Incredible.
There's not many people who have, certainly the physical capability to do that. No one has. But mentally, to not be rattled in that situation and to say okay, I'm not giving up on my goal. I'm going to stay with it.
So good. We could keep talking on this for a while, but I want to hit a few of our community questions and comments real quick. You've kind of answered these, but I just want to acknowledge them. Tiger Spreadsheet Solutions, asks from Kipchoge, what % is he a nature versus nurture guy? I think you kind of really hit that a little bit in the last one, but a little rapid fire, what's the %? Yeah, tell us, Mara, what is the percentage?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think it's 50-50 is the easy answer, because I think there is, there is definitely a nature thing. He was born with some gifts that we just don't have, and he's been able to develop those gifts over the years. But he, from a nurture standpoint, with his coaching and even just himself, if you look at how he behaves outside of his workouts, it's like he's the best marathoner in the world. No one would dispute that. And when he's in camp, he doesn't expect to be treated differently than anyone else. He has a real working man's mentality. When he's not running, he's reading books to improve himself and get his mind in the right place. And
this ties into our next one, which is kind of around mental toughness and training, which also ties into the nurture part. Force of Dean Runner has a question around the mental aspects of the Kenyans that make them just a cut above. We have... Who is it? Yelemi asking, is there a way we can improve our mental toughness when running? I can't tell how important it is. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is it's hugely important, but it's also important to remember that we are all individuals, and the things that are going to contribute to our mental toughness, which I think is a very vague term, our motivation, is very different. But we practice that, in training, and it's, learning to deal with those adverse situations and whatever tips and tricks that you use to push through those moments when you're not sure that you can keep the pace or you can go another mile or whatever the case may be. And I can't speak to the specifics of Kipchoge's mental toughness, but I can say that he has been developing that, over the years, and maybe it's evolved. He's obviously at a place now in his career where, financially he is set and he doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. But I think he's been building, that mental toughness and that reservoir of tips and tricks that he can pull from, for decades now.
Yeah. You mentioned in your podcast again with Lauren Fleshman, I think how Eliud does not read. He doesn't just read running books. He actually reads a lot of non-running books as well. So he's not just.
I don't think he reads
he's
any.
He's got a little
running
bit more
books.
expanded.
Yeah,
that's great.
I don't think he reads any running books. New York Times did a great profile on him, which you can find online just before Berlin, and talks about that when he's not training, he is just got his head buried in a book trying to not improve his running. He's not looking at like, oh, well, how can I optimize my cadence, or what should be the ratio of carbohydrates to fat in my diet, or should I carbo load or whatever this stuff. No, he's reading like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's reading like Peak Performance. He's reading
I was just going to mention that book.
He's reading like Adam Grant, and you could look up online like his list of kind of favorite writers, but it's just all things that he can certainly pull lessons from those books and apply them to his running, but he's trying to improve his whole person. And I think if he's able to do that, it manifests itself in his running.
It's really, really just an unbelievable story. I hope there's like a really good documentary that comes out after this attempt that includes like his lead up to the marathon.
Oh man,
I'm sure that he's been tracked. I mean, everybody knows
there's got to be more.
Yeah.
Well, Mario, there's one of his. I will say this. Give him credit, because a lot of times these top marathoners going back. I mean, social media is more prevalent now than it's ever been, and arguably during the time of like Haile Gebrselassie and even Kenenisa Bekele when he was coming up, and Paul Tergat, like social media was either non-existent or in its nascent stages, and storytelling wasn't as prevalent as it is now. But Kipchoge's handlers, his agents, his representatives, they realized that it is important not only for him but for the vitality of the sport that more people outside of the nerdy little running world that we reside in know who this guy is, that he's one of the greatest athletes on the planet. And they've done a great job kind of managing the social channels and documenting what he's been up to in his life and sharing his story with with other people, and I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
That's
great.
Great.
No, I hope there's more and more stuff about him.
It really is.
Really just even for not. I just think like when something like this happens, it's not a running world thing. It is an everybody thing. And if this had happened during the Olympics, there'd be a lot more like specific media, I think, and people are looking at it. But not everybody's watching the Berlin Marathon to see whether this happens or not, and I hope that there continues to be more attention for him.
It changes. No, man. Well, Mario, we could keep going for a long time.
It's 1 o'clock already.
It is 1 o'clock. Okay. We're already to the end of the hour. Thank you again.
And guys, we gotta do the drawing.
We have to do the drawing for last week.
Yeah.
For the
and if you're watching this and you're not watching it live, you can still enter the drawing for Mario's book, because we're going to be doing the drawing next week for his autographed copies of his book. And of course, you can get two copies of the book. So we'll have 2 winners. And if you want to just find Mario online in the Morning Shakeout, of course, just go to the Gleam link, and we have links to all of his stuff, his podcast, and his website, and the newsletter, which of course you should sign up for.
Yeah. Mario, thanks again, buddy.
Thanks a lot for coming on. Yeah, as always, it's really great. Yeah, appreciate it. And we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Later.
Okay. Bye. All right. There we go. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in this hour. There's so much stuff to talk to Mario about. He's such a wealth of knowledge. Not kidding about that Morning Shakeout. You should definitely check it out. It's an awesome newsletter.
Really good. But let's get to our giveaway. Now, the giveaway we're working on here is the Fitbit by Onic Watch.
If you guys watched our interview with Dean Karnazes last week, Dean is and this our show is sponsored by Fitbit, who gave away one of these. It's like a $250 watch.
Yeah.
So you should definitely try it out. Where's yours?
Right here.
There you go.
So we had 921 of you enter
Nice.
this thing, which is crazy. And the winner
Oh.
is Brian Kotz
From Romulus, Michigan.
From Romulus, Michigan.
So Brian, if you're watching, you should look out for an email from us.
Yeah.
And send us your address so that you can get your watch.
Yes. I have to pick up the watch from Dean and
Oh,
get
do
it
you?
sent your way.
Okay, there we go. That's how that works.
But anyway, we love doing these giveaways and connecting with you guys. Definitely get on Mario's thing. Like, it's a great book, fantastic training guide. Anything Mario puts out is definitely worth
Yeah,
looking
and
up.
we're looking forward to working more with Mario, so
We
look
are.
out for that. Cool, guys, it is past 1 o'clock. Sorry for keeping you late. Thank you for signing on. We'll be back here next Thursday. Are you going to be here next Thursday?
I'm gonna be on a plane, so Craig might be
I will
solo
be here
next week.
Thursday.
We shall see.
We'll have more kitchen shenanigans.
Yeah, definitely more kitchen
We'll
shenanigans.
probably get Holly on here too. She's been out and about for a while.
We got to get her a little download on our Italy trip.
Guys, thank you for signing on. We will see you guys next week. Wait, here comes the outro. Bam.
There we go.